You know you're a black press on charcoal.
Was to let me eat. Let me sit at the table with the big boy.
All I can say is what Bernie told me. And he was upset with Steve because he said Steve tried to get him taken off for the Oceans movie he did.
Oceans 11?
Yeah, and tried to vie for his part after he already got hired.
Leave the Lord, you assist. And you marching in all like this here.
Steve called the producers to try to get his role and even wanted to take less money, and the producers told Steve no. That's what Bernie told Ed Lover.
It's like we was together, we were all excited, and the next day it didn't happen. And essentially, Bernie, felt like he didn't want to do it anymore. He was on his own path, and Steve, so.
Bernie Mac's story begins on the south side of Chicago, a place where laughter wasn't just entertainment, it was survival. Born Bernard Jeffrey McCullough on October 5, 1957, he grew up in a working-class neighborhood filled with both community warmth and the harsh realities of poverty. When Bernie was just 16, his life changed forever. His mother, Mary, passed away from cancer. Only months later, other close family members followed. It was a wave of loss that could have broken him. Instead, Bernie turned to comedy, not as a dream yet, but as a lifeline. He discovered that humor could ease pain, both his own and the people around him. At school, at church, at block parties, he became the kid who could make you laugh through the tears. That skill, born from grief, would become his gift to the world. But life wasn't easy. Bernie worked jobs to get by: janitor, bus driver, furniture mover, even a UPS worker. He hustled during the day and chased the mic at night. Small clubs, smoky bars, basement shows, anywhere with a crowd became his stage. From the beginning, his comedy was raw. He didn't sugarcoat, he didn't play nice. He talked about what he knew, about family, struggle, money, race, and loss. His comedy came straight from the gut, and Chicago audiences loved it. They saw themselves in him. He wasn't pretending, he wasn't polished, he was real. Bernie would often say that comedy was his therapy. Every time he told a joke, every time he got a laugh, it felt like a small victory against the pain that haunted him. It gave him strength, and it gave others joy. That authenticity became his weapon. It was sharp, it was fearless, it was Chicago. Looking back, Bernie often said that those years taught him everything. Comedy wasn't just about punchlines, it was about truth. It was about survival. And from the pain of his beginnings, Bernie built the foundation for a career that would take him from the South Side to Hollywood, and eventually into the hearts of millions. By the early 1990s, Bernie Mac had carved out a name in Chicago's comedy scene, but he was still hustling, still waiting for that big break. It finally came in 1992 on a stage that would change his life: HBO's Def Comedy Jam. Def Comedy Jam was the raw, unfiltered showcase for black comedians. And Bernie knew he couldn't just be good, he had to be unforgettable. And when he stepped on stage, in that iconic moment, staring down a restless, rowdy New York crowd, he delivered the line that would define him: "I ain't scared of you." With that, the room exploded. He didn't just tell jokes, he commanded the stage. His timing, his swagger, his fearless delivery was comedy as combat, and Bernie walked off victorious. Overnight, he became a national name. Comics and audiences alike knew they had witnessed something different. That moment opened doors. He landed small but memorable roles in films like Mo Money, 1992, and Friday, 1995, stealing scenes with just a few minutes of screen time. He also hosted Midnight Mac, a short-lived but bold late-night show on HBO. Each gig showed more of his range, his ability to blend grit with charm. But the true turning point came in 2000 with the original Kings of Comedy. Alongside Steve Harvey, Cedric the Entertainer, and D.L. Hughley, Bernie hit the road for a comedy tour that became a phenomenon. Directed by Spike Lee, the film captured Bernie at his best: fearless, filthy, and brutally honest. While the other comics killed with their sets, Bernie's closing performance was legendary. His routines about family, discipline, and kids struck a chord because they were so true to life. He said things other people thought but never dared to say, and audiences howled because it was real. The success was massive. The tour grossed with $37 million. The film broke box office records for stand-up, and suddenly, Bernie Mac wasn't just a comic, he was a star. It was proof that the kid from Chicago, who turned grief into laughter, now had the whole world laughing with him.
According to multiple accounts, Bernie carried resentment toward Steve. Part of it came from what he believed was competition, not camaraderie. One story that circulated claimed Steve tried to snatch Bernie's role in Ocean's 11, the slick 2001 heist movie that became one of Bernie's signature film appearances. Bernie landed the role of Frank Catton, but the rumor was that Steve lobbied producers to replace him. For Bernie, that wasn't just business, it was betrayal. The tension spilled into other areas. The Kings of Comedy tour was a juggernaut, breaking records and grossing millions. But when it came time to consider a second tour, things fell apart. Those close to Bernie claimed he felt undermined by Steve, both on stage and behind closed doors. The laughter on stage masked a silent rivalry. Some said Bernie believes Steve wanted to be the alpha, the star among stars, while Bernie prided himself on keeping his act raw and authentic, never chasing Hollywood polish. The clash of egos and styles created a friction that never fully healed. And the whispers didn't help. Industry insiders, fellow comics, even fans picked sides. Ed Lover and Cat Williams would later echo Bernie's belief that Steve had undercut him. Others said Bernie's raw, no-filter honesty clashed with Steve's smoother, business-first approach. The differences in style became differences in trust. Steve, for his part, has always denied trying to sabotage Bernie. Years later, when asked about the rumors, he said the claims hurt him deeply, insisting he never tried to take Bernie's role and never worked against him. But the two never fully reconciled. The rivalry was never explosive, never public in a headline-grabbing way, but it was real enough to shape decisions, stall opportunities, and cast a shadow on what should have been a golden era. In comedy, the audience only sees the laughs. Off stage, the battles can be just as sharp as any punchline. And for Bernie Mac, the rivalry with Steve Harvey became one of the defining shadows of his career. To the public, the Kings of Comedy tour looked flawless. Four giants of comedy trading jokes, playing off each other, and building a legacy. But backstage, the chemistry was more complicated. Bernie Mac and Steve Harvey's uneasy relationship shaped everything. The audience saw brotherhood, but those close to the tour described a power struggle simmering beneath the surface. It wasn't loud, it wasn't a fist fight, it was a silent war fought in whispers, side comments, and backroom negotiations. Bernie often felt Steve wanted control. He was the MC, the one who opened and closed the night. That role gave him visibility, but it also gave him influence with promoters, with press, with decision-makers. Bernie, meanwhile, felt his own brilliance was being overshadowed, even though fans often said his set was the highlight of the night.
The tension spilled over into money talks. When promoters floated the idea of a second Kings of Comedy tour, disagreements over contracts and billing order collided with the personal feud. Bernie didn't want to return if he felt disrespected, and with him gone, the sequel never happened. Cedric the Entertainer and D.L. Hewley later admitted there was tension among the group, describing the atmosphere as alpha males battling for space. No one wanted to be second. No one wanted to feel like a backup. The chemistry that looked effortless on stage came with heavy costs behind the curtain. For Bernie, it wasn't about ego, or at least not in the traditional sense. It was about authenticity. He had fought too hard, endured too much to play games in Hollywood or comedy. If he thought someone was undercutting him, he wasn't going to smile and pretend otherwise. Promoters saw the cracks too. They whispered about lost millions, about what could have been if the four kings had reunited. The media speculated, fans begged for more, but the silent war made it impossible. Bernie had no interest in forcing friendships or faking harmony for a paycheck. The sad truth is that this quiet feud robbed fans of more history. Another tour could have built on their legend. Instead, the feud froze the moment in time. The original Kings of Comedy became both the beginning and the end. From the outside, it looked like comedy magic. From the inside, it was a battlefield. The original Kings of Comedy tour was lightning in a bottle, grossing tens of millions, selling out arenas, and birthing a Spike Lee-directed film. It was the kind of cultural moment that begged for a sequel. Fans assumed it was inevitable. How could you not bring back something that iconic? But a second tour never happened, and the reasons were as much about pride as they were about business. Cedric the Entertainer and D.L. Hewley has both spoken openly about why the sequel fell apart. According to them, the issue wasn't talent, it was tension. Behind the curtain, the alpha male dynamic was hard to ignore. 4 headliners sharing one stage meant 4 egos, 4 visions, and 4 sets of demands. And when it came to negotiating contracts, things got messy. Bernie Mac, already frustrated with Steve, was unwilling to compromise. He didn't want to return to an environment where he felt disrespected or sidelined. To Bernie, comedy was about honesty, and honesty meant walking away when the situation no longer felt right. Promoters tried to salvage things, but the disagreements over money, billing order, and creative direction proved too heavy. Bernie, always the straight shooter, pulled the plug. And when he walked, the sequel died with him. The fallout was disappointing for fans. A second Kings of Comedy could have expanded their legacy, brought in even bigger profits, and cemented their dominance for another decade. Instead, the brand ended as quickly as it had exploded. Many fans were left wondering what could have been, and promoters quietly admitted millions were left on the table. Some insiders argued that the feud between Bernie and Steve was the nail in the coffin. Without mutual trust, there was no foundation for another tour. Others said the comedy landscape was shifting anyway, and a sequel might not have captured the same magic. But Bernie was clear in his stance. He wasn't going to bow, bend, or play politics. If the choice was between his dignity and another paycheck, dignity won every time. In the end, the second Kings of Comedy tour never happened. And while fans missed out on more history, the decision revealed something essential about Bernie Mac. He would rather walk away than live a lie. The story of Bernie Mac and Steve Harvey's feud is complicated because, depending on who you ask, the truth shifts. What's undeniable is that Bernie felt betrayed. What's debated is whether Steve actually did what Bernie believed. On one side were Bernie's supporters. Radio host Ed Lover claimed Bernie confided in him about Steve trying to undercut him. Cat Williams, never shy about industry drama, also backed Bernie's claims, painting Steve as someone who positioned himself for Hollywood deals at Bernie's expense. These voices gave weight to the idea that Bernie's suspicions weren't paranoia. They were rooted in real actions. But Steve Harvey has always told a different story. In a 2003 GQ profile, Bernie was quoted expressing frustration with Steve. The piece reignited the rivalry narrative, framing it as personal jealousy. Steve later said that article hurt him deeply. He insisted he never lobbied to take Bernie's role in Ocean 11 and never worked to sabotage his friend's career. To him, the accusations were not only false, they damaged a relationship that might have been saved. The conflicting accounts created confusion that never fully cleared. Some saw Bernie as the truth teller, the straight shooter, calling things as they were. Others believed Steve, pointing out that in the cutthroat world of Hollywood, rumors often outgrow reality. What makes the story so compelling is that both men were successful in their own right. Steve Harvey went on to build an empire hosting radio, TV, best-selling books, and eventually Family Feud. Bernie Mac, on the other hand, cemented his reputation as the fearless comic who said what others wouldn't. Their trajectories proved there was enough space for both to thrive, but the lingering tension meant the bond between them never healed. The media, of course, fueled the fire. Headlines loved the idea of two kings at odds. Fans debated on radio call-ins, internet forums, and barbershops. To some, it was proof that Hollywood would always pit black entertainers against each other. To others, it was just two powerful men clashing in the spotlight.
Fans still debate it today. Did Steve Harvey really try to step on Bernie's shine? Or was Bernie misled by the politics of Hollywood? We may never know the full truth. What we do know is this: perception is powerful. For Bernie, the perception of betrayal was enough to create distance. And in the fragile world of trust between comedians, that was all it took to turn laughter into silence. By the early 2000s, Bernie Mac was more than a stand-up star. He was ready to bring his voice to television. That opportunity came with The Bernie Mac Show, a sitcom that debuted on Fox in 2001. Created with writer Larry Wilmore, it was loosely based on Bernie's real life, portraying him as a comedian suddenly raising his sister's 3 kids. The show was fresh, sharp, and different from anything else on TV. Instead of a laugh track, Bernie often broke the fourth wall, speaking directly to the audience with his trademark raw honesty. "America?" he'd say, as if the viewers were sitting right there in his living room. It was Bernie's stand-up voice, translated perfectly into sitcom form. The reception was strong. Critics praised it, audiences connected with it, and in its first season, the show pulled in solid ratings. It won an Emmy for writing, a prestigious Peabody Award, and Bernie himself received NAACP Image Awards. For a moment, it looked like Bernie had finally found the platform that could match his talent. But behind the scenes, the battles continued. Fox executives loved the show's success, but didn't always understand Bernie's vision. Time slot shuffles hurt ratings momentum. Creative clashes arose between Bernie, Wilmore, and the network over tone and direction. Wilmore eventually left during the second season, citing differences that made it hard to keep the show consistent. Bernie, meanwhile, refused to water himself down. He wanted the show to reflect his comedy, tough love, honesty, and no sugarcoating. That approach sometimes clashed with the network's push for a more traditional sitcom style. As Bernie himself said in interviews, Hollywood often wanted him to play it safe. But he built his career on doing the opposite. Despite the turbulence, The Bernie Mac Show lasted 5 seasons, ending in 2006. It gave audiences some of Bernie's most memorable lines, cemented his reputation as a true television star, and influenced a generation of sitcoms that followed. Many later family comedies borrowed elements of its style, from single-camera storytelling to the intimate, confessional tone. The show's battles revealed the same truth as Bernie's career overall. He wasn't afraid of conflict if it meant staying authentic. For him, success wasn't worth it if it came at the cost of his voice. Bernie Mac was never afraid to speak his mind, and that included how he talked about Hollywood. For young comics chasing fame, he was both a warning and a role model. He told the truth about the industry, the pressure, the politics, and the cost of success. Bernie often said Hollywood wanted comedians to play the game, smile at the right people, network with the right crowd, laugh at the jokes that weren't funny. He called it the suck-up culture, and he hated it. He refused to change who he was just to fit into rooms that didn't want him there in the first place. In interviews, Bernie told young comedians to be patient, to build their craft before rushing to Los Angeles. Don't come to Hollywood too early, because Hollywood will eat you alive if you're not ready. He believed you had to know who you were before the industry tried to tell you who to be. His advice wasn't just theory, it came from experience. Bernie had been overlooked, rejected, and pushed aside because he wouldn't compromise his style. He knew how easy it was to get lost chasing the next deal or the next laugh. To him, originality was the only currency that mattered. That's why his comedy stayed fearless. He didn't censor himself. He didn't soften his words. If something was on his mind, it came out on stage or on screen exactly as he meant it. Fans loved him for it, but industry insiders sometimes saw it as difficult. Bernie didn't care. To him, being labeled difficult was just another way of saying he refused to be fake. Other comics respected him for it. They saw Bernie as the one who wouldn't play Hollywood's game, even if it cost him roles. Fans admired him as the same on and off the stage. Bold, blunt, and unshakably real.
He once said, "I don't play politics, I tell the truth." That philosophy defined his career. It cost him opportunities, but it also made him unforgettable. For Bernie, Hollywood wasn't just a place of bright lights. It was a battlefield. And he wanted younger comedians to know that if they entered unprepared, the same system that crowned you could crush you. In the end, his honesty became his legacy. He didn't just make people laugh. He taught them what it meant to stand tall in an industry built on bending. Behind the laughter, Bernie Mac carried a burden most fans didn't see: his health. For years, he battled sarcoidosis, a rare inflammatory disease that attacks the lungs and other organs. Bernie spoke about it occasionally, but he never wanted pity. On stage, he was larger than life. Off stage, he was a man quietly fighting exhaustion. The grind didn't help. Comedy tours, film shoots, and television schedules pushed him to the limit. Friends said Bernie often worked himself past the point of exhaustion, refusing to slow down. He believed in giving everything to his craft, even if it cost him physically.
By 2007, the weight of it all caught up. During an appearance on The Late Show with David Letterman, Bernie shocked audiences by announcing his retirement from stand-up comedy. At 49, he said it was time to enjoy life, to spend time with his wife Rhonda, his daughter Janice, and his granddaughter. He told Letterman, "I'm not running all over the world anymore. I'm gonna stay home. I want to enjoy my life." It wasn't a surrender. It was a declaration. After decades of hustling, Bernie wanted to finally breathe. He wanted cookouts, family gatherings, quiet nights at home, the simple joys that fame often steals. But even in retirement, Bernie kept working. He filmed movies like Transformers 2007, Soul Men 2008, and Madagascar: Escape to Africa 2008. His schedule slowed, but his output didn't stop. That was Bernie, restless, driven, and committed to leaving it all on the table. Those close to him say he struggled with balancing rest and work. Sarcoidosis sometimes flared, leaving him drained. Yet he never let illness define him. He insisted on being remembered for his comedy, not his condition. Fans respected his decision. Many said they admired that he chose family over endless grinding, something most celebrities never dared to do. Fellow comics called him a man of integrity, someone who knew when enough was enough. Looking back, his decision to retire wasn't about quitting. It was about reclaiming time with family, time for himself, time he knew he had earned. In the end, Bernie's health battles were a reminder that even legends are human. He could make millions laugh, but he still longed for peace, rest, and the love of home. On August 9th, 2008, the world lost Bernie Mac. At just 50 years old, complications from pneumonia tied to his long struggle with sarcoidosis took his life far too soon. The news shocked fans everywhere. A man whose voice was so strong, so commanding, so alive, suddenly silenced. In Chicago, thousands gathered to honor him. His memorial service was filled with family, friends, and fans who couldn't imagine comedy without him. Celebrities like Chris Rock, Cedric the Entertainer, Don Cheadle, and Steve Harvey were there, paying respects to a man who had left an indelible mark on comedy and culture. The city of Chicago issued a proclamation honoring his contributions, officially marking Bernie Mac as one of its proudest sons. What struck people most was not just his talent, but his authenticity. Bernie Mac didn't hide behind a Hollywood mask. He was the same man on screen as he was in real life, blunt, funny, and honest to the core. His comedy came from truth, and that truth lives on in his work. His legacy was also educational. Young comedians continue to cite Bernie as an influence, not just for his timing and delivery, but for his fearlessness. He taught them that comedy wasn't about being liked, it was about being real. If you told the truth, the laughs would follow. Television and film carry his imprint. The Bernie Mac Show paved the way for modern sitcoms that blend stand-up sensibilities with family storytelling. His movie roles, from Ocean's 11 to Mr. 3000, showed his range as a comedian who could hold his own in both comedy and drama. But perhaps his greatest legacy is the way he lived. Bernie Mac rose from hardship, from the south side of Chicago, and turned grief into laughter. He gave his pain to the world, and in return, the world loved him for it.